guys, it's Meghan Tonjes, and I'm not crying in this video. I know people apologize for like not looking a certain way in videos. I'm not gonna do that because I look goddamn great. Especially considering how hot it is in the valley right now. You know August and September is no joke here, so. I haven't had a chance to make another video since my response to Dear Fat People, and that's because I was at Playlist this past weekend and I've just been traveling, and then also just kind of really incredibly overwhelmed by a lot of stuff that's been happening online. I figured I would make a video kind of responding to a few things, giving some context to the video and where I'm at right now, so I can kind of just link this to people that are in my @replies and not have to explain the same thing over and over again. So first things first, let's give a little context to the video, the response to Dear Fat People. I saw the Dear Fat People video at like 3 a.m. I was packing for Playlist. I didn't end up sleeping that night, was just kind of getting all of my stuff together last minute as per usual, and saw this video and was very struck by it. And so immediately made a response. You can look at the timestamps from Twitter. My video went up within a few hours of her actually uploading that video. Obviously in the video I was very emotional, and I think that I've been getting a lot of comments from people saying, oh, you're just really thin-skinned, and why are fat people so sensitive, and why are you so concerned with what a stranger thinks? It's not necessarily about like one video or one joke or even the person making that video and that joke. It's really that overall mindset. I think there's a lot of fatigue that happens, and I'm sure all my comments will be like, you should be fatigued, you fat bitch. But I'm just saying, there's a lot of emotional and mental fatigue that goes along with having to, on a base level, explain to people that you're worthy of being treated with respect. And so watching a 6.5-minute video about how disgusting fat people are and how bad they smell and how dare they take up space on an airplane, and none of those things are like new jokes or new things or new ideas. But it's exhausting because jokes like that kind of video people are sharing on Facebook and YouTube and are like LOLing over, really validates people in their treatment of fat people, and often their mistreatment. The idea of like, I can say whatever I want because I'm not talking about these specific fat people, is flawed in and of itself. Unfortunately, in the moment when you're on a plane making a snide remark, or you're taking pictures to share on your Facebook with your friends about how disgusting the person next to you is, that's a real story that has happened to a friend of mine. Or you're in the comedic sense shoving some kid's fat out of the way on an airplane seat, as is kind of talked about in this video. In those moments, you can't really tell the kind of fat person you're talking to. Is this a fat person that deals with some kind of endocrine disorder? Is this someone who has already lost a significant amount of weight? Or is this someone who doesn't have an official excuse to be fat? You can't tell these things. I found this incredible response from Lindy West, and I'm not gonna read the whole thing, I'm gonna link to it below. And Lindy says, whether you like it or not, whether you realize it or not, your life is tangibly better because of fat women who live unapologetically, who wedge the gates of acceptance open wider every day. I fight for you in your capacity as a woman who wants to be more than just a body. I fight for you in your capacity as a woman whose body is scrutinized and policed every moment of your life. I fight for you in your capacity as a woman who wants to be taken seriously in comedy. I fight for you in your capacity as a woman who wants to be heard, not blamed when she reports a sexual assault. I fight for you in your capacity as a woman who will eventually age and be told you are without value. I fight for you in your capacity as a woman vulnerable to any number of emotional and physical maladies that could, to your surprise, make you as fat as me. I fight for you in your capacity as a complex, fully formed human being with the right to autonomy over your body, even if that body gets fat. I'm gonna link to that below because I got chills reading that, but that's really what it comes down to, is the reason why people like me are upset when we see a video like that, or just like we meet people in real life who treat us as such, is because when we're talking about body positivity, we're not talking about just one body. You know, really my video was kind of a call to action of like, just please view people as like complex people. Not the idea of like, you're so complex and so nuanced that you can't be healthy, but understand that health isn't everyone's top priority, which I know is shocking to people, but it is true. And not all fat people are unhealthy, and not all people are the same. I am allowed to be as emotional and as vulnerable and as passionate as I want to be, especially on my channel. Which brings me to another point. I think some people were very confused tweeting me because they thought that I had played some part in censoring this video, that I'm pro-censorship, that I had this video taken down, and that's incredibly not the case. I'm fine with the video being up and fine with your channel being up and really fine with you doing whatever it is that you want to do, but understand that there is going to be a reaction to that and there is going to be commentary. So yes, if that is a point of view, and I know it is, that people agree with and believe in, keep the video up. but then also realize that there need to be counterpoints to that so that when people watch that video and feel incredibly alone because they're on the opposite end of this satire, they can find other people who have a little bit of insight into how to deal with this kind of thing. All I'm asking is that if you're gonna make a fat joke, and by all means make a fat joke, make me laugh. You better make my big fat ass laugh. I'm going to use my subjective opinion to say that it's not funny. I don't support any of the actual bullying that's happening online to anyone, including Nicole. I've seen threats, I've seen like disgusting things, and to those people I usually report and block, and or I jump in the comment and I, you know, especially if someone's like defending me, I'm like, no, we don't speak like that here. I don't think the girl should be threatened because she has an opinion that's counter to what a lot of people might have. I'm even in support if you want to turn off your comments on YouTube and you want to disable things, do that. Ultimately, your channel is kind of your house and you have to see all of these things, and if you don't want to see them, then for your own self-care, feel free to get rid of them. But from a creative standpoint, it kind of cuts down the actual conversation, and it feels in some ways, with the way it's been gloated about on Twitter, about look how many subscribers I got from this, when the best of the best come for you, #winning, it just feels like why do the troll thing and play that role and set the trap, but then also stop the conversation? Like, if anything, that, I don't know, it's very confusing, because if anything, those conversations are going to keep views going on your video and keep people coming back to defend their point. So that's where it's confusing for me, is I ultimately don't know what role's being played. One of the points that's been made about what I put up was the Fuck Your Feelings title and the picture of me like this. Fuck Your Feelings is a series that I've been doing kind of here on Fridays for a while. And it is a title that kind of grabs you and is something that we say all of the time, like fuck your feelings, as a reason to just dismiss other points of views because we don't feel the same. If you watch the actual Fuck Your Feelings videos, you know that often it's set up like a rant, but ultimately it's kind of evaluating both sides of a situation and trying to find some kind of middle ground or mediation. Ultimately, it's not fuck your feelings, I don't care about you, blah, blah, it's all about me. It's kind of fuck all of our feelings, because at the end of the day, we're a lot closer with the goals that we have for ourselves and for the people that we love than we usually imagine. Listen, you have to watch the content and then look at the title and then figure out maybe the correlation. So ultimately, people don't get it, they don't get it. But also, it's a little bit lazy to kind of critique something that you haven't watched. And I also have a series called Request Tuesday, and sometimes it goes up on a Wednesday. I'm a walking contradiction. Also, something that I kind of really quickly wanted to address was a comment that Nicole left on Grace's video, and Grace made a response not to the situation as much as to the video and how the video made her feel. I want to specifically address a few of the things that Nicole said about what I've done to her in the past. Before I start that, let me say that everything I've ever, any kind of like interaction that hasn't been like me DMing Nicole to say like, are you okay after your breakup 6 months ago or whatever, has been incredibly public. I haven't deleted anything, everything is still up there. I tweet a lot, so if you can scroll all the way back and find it, God bless and good luck. But it's hard to have a full version of everything that has happened in the past 8 months or whatever, because this is not my first run-in with Nicole. Unfortunately, everything she tweets at me, she deletes, which is her choice, but it makes it very hard to have a conversation and for anything to be real. Meghan's video starts with a photo of her saying fuck your feelings. What she does is shit on people as content. That's her thing. That's not really my thing. I am a musician and I make a lot of content, including videos where I do call out behavior in the community, where I'm going to panels and I'm on panels talking about how to make YouTube and make the YouTube community better and more meaningful. So yes, I do have a vested interest in the content that people make and kind of what it says about the community as a whole. Is my word law? No. I can be pretty blunt and pointed with everything, but I'm able to have a conversation. She made an entire podcast about me when I didn't know her, shitting on me when I was a brand new YouTuber and barely knew anyone. I do have to say that I did make a podcast where I addressed a specific issue that happened with Nicole and her then boyfriend, Santoro, back in the day. I don't think that Nicole remembers making a 15-minute video.
And you're accusing my nice fans who help people, that is why we exist, of coming after you who they haven't heard of.
Where they called me the poison of the YouTube community and the biggest bully on the site for simply calling out something they did with her then boyfriend, Matthew Santoro, who, by the way, at Playlist was incredibly apologetic for all of the things that have happened. And I appreciate that because people do not apologize for things in this community, and they definitely don't apologize to your face. And at that time, Nicole blocked me for tweeting at her, "No one's coming for you and your boyfriend. People just want an explanation." That's what I was blocked for. It's hard to understand the context of what bullying is when the definition kind of changes for a person all the time depending on where they are in the situation. This idea that like she walked into the community all brand fresh new and was just randomly attacked is just not the case, at least from where I'm standing and from everything that is still up of mine. And you guys can tell me, you can inform me, let me know if anything that I've said has been on the realm of bullying. When I couldn't make an event for personal reasons, she made a hashtag shitting on me. So at Vlogger Fair, on some photos, I used the hashtag show up. A year ago, I made a video called "You Gotta Show Up," or "You Have to Show Up," or some incarnation of that phrase. And I talked about how often I see YouTubers who are scheduled for events or for conferences or for shows or whatever, and they don't show up when they're like out partying the night before. And I've called out that behavior because ultimately it's irresponsible, and what we're doing when we're there, especially if you're being flown out and put in a hotel, is a job, and there should be a contract. And now the events are starting to get those in order, so that people are in charge of their travel when they miss things, and they're in charge of, you know, somehow compensating a conference when they don't kind of follow what the contract states. It's kind of been an inside joke along the way of hashtag show up. I clearly wasn't aware that Nicole was going through intense personal issues, especially considering that she was like hosting a beer festival in Hamilton, Ontario, and it was on Snapchat and Instagram. When I was having a personal crisis, she made a video making fun of me. I don't know what video she's talking about. The only video that I've made in reference, I think was after kind of the big blow up with Santoro and Nicole, where I basically put out like, look, we don't have to be friends. This was a very hurtful thing, but like ultimately, like I don't think that we should be fighting over this. You can see that I left a comment on Nicole's channel when this all happened saying, you know, I think we were both fighting for people that we love, and it happens, and I hope you feel better. When a friend was having a nervous breakdown, she trolled them over the edge even after being asked to lay off. I also don't know what that is. And I think that that's another word that the definition has become really blurred. There's 140 characters. And so if I'm responding to something and we're having a back and forth conversation, I'm not trolling you. I make it a practice of mine that if I'm being tagged in a conversation and I'm just like, I'm either done explaining myself or I'm not interested, I just say, please remove me from this conversation. And if anyone has ever said anything like that to me, then in general, I would stop responding because clearly like that's not conducive to any kind of conversation. It's hard to respond to really general statements that don't have anything to back them up.
I believe I'm the only YouTuber that I've heard of that uses their fans as an army of volunteers for charity events.
Anything I didn't cover or talk about, I'm sure I'll talk way more in depth on the podcast. The truth is that I recorded a video response 3 or 4 times to Nicole's last Instagram video, and I held back because I just didn't want to get in a fight with this person. Like, I honestly have kind of just been avoiding this situation at all because even though she makes content that I don't necessarily agree with, and if in a lot of cases I don't find funny, some of her stuff I have seen and I liked. So it's like, you know, it's your YouTube channel, you gotta do what you gotta do, and if it gets to a point where I have to respond to it, I have to respond to it. Part of me feels like she baited me a little bit with that video, and that's not to take too much credit, but I just think there were so many specific examples in that video about the hashtags and this whole meme she put up of Drake where she's talking about like trapping all the white knights and blah blah blah. It just felt like you can't make a 6-minute video about how disgusting fat people are and like I'm not gonna chime in. Furthermore, the kind of disturbing thing in that comment is talking about how really it's kind of at the fault of us bringing that video to a younger audience. It's not the difference between Disney and SNL or Disney and Adult Swim or whatever. The reality is that your content's up, it's not flagged as explicit or 18 and over only. And I would be interested to see your analytics because I'm sure that you have younger people watching you. But also this isn't just offensive to like 12-year-olds, this is offensive to 20-year-olds. This is offensive and triggering to 40-year-olds. This is offensive and triggering across the board because body image and obesity and all these things are very complex conversations because it involves real life people and their experiences. And so if you choose to make room for that conversation or not on your channel, it's fine, but that conversation is going to happen. And unfortunately, your video is going to be referenced as an example of what a lot of people in the community find very damaging and very hurtful. And the way that you're allowed to put up the video, we are allowed to feel that way. Part of why we do what we do, right, is to get a reaction, to get a response. And how you choose to navigate that or deal with that or kind of take that on is completely up to you as the entertainer. Had I made that video the next day, probably would have just been snarky and like, well, fuck this shit. But it was 3 in the morning and I saw it and it set something off in me, and I'm not going to not be vulnerable because it makes people uncomfortable. These conversations are bigger than one video and one person because it's a mindset and it's something that we need to talk about. But when I got on a plane to go to Playlist, I thought about that video in the back of my head. Doesn't that suck? I'm good with my body and where I am in my journey, and people that have known me for a long time know what that journey's been. And I still sat in that plane and tried to make sure that I didn't touch anyone with my arms or anything. And like, that's such a shitty thing to feel. And I'm pretty good where I am, so I imagine other people who don't travel as often because they're insecure, they don't feel like they could really do it. And even people who physically might look a certain way but feel that they don't look that way, it's just, you know, it sticks with you and you can't help what you're affected by. I honestly think that if Nicole had come in and said, you know what, I stand 100% behind this. This is comedy for me. This is funny. This is what I do. But I have an understanding of why people are upset, and I sympathize with that. And I'll try to be a better creator and make better content. And thank you so much for the support. This would have gone a completely different way. Probably a way that wouldn't have gotten as many views or as many subscribers or as much attention. Whether that attention is good or not, I don't know that all publicity is good publicity. And I know that in this community, when people see damaging stuff and see kind of a lack of culpability for the things that people are doing, it's a little bit different than Facebook and Facebook shares and probably what's talked about there and what's celebrated there. Let me know what you think below in the comments. If you want, you can go check out the podcast. You can follow me on all the places in my particulates. And if you hate me for being fat and you want to leave that in the comment, you can do that too. I'd prefer you didn't. And if you get super shitty, I'm gonna block you and I'm gonna remove your stuff for the self-care of my audience. But you know, choices have consequences and words mean things, and it's Wednesday.